have resolved to exterminate us.
They have a new leader, Marius. He wants the blood of Selene. If they use it, the Lycan's power will be limitless.
There has never been a large-scale Lycan attack.
There has never been a Marius.
Help me protect her.
Do I look worried?
You must go north. You will find answers there.
War has followed you here.
Marius.
If you want to win this war, you will need to go further than even a warrior of your renown has ever ventured before.
Impossible.
Looking for someone.
There's nothing stopping her now. All I want is your blood.
Come and get it.
She is the purest of us all.
I'm not that pure.
Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
You look amazing.
Thanks. I heard there was going to be lobster.
Number 5, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Number 5.
Yeah.
Did you have any hesitation going into this? Do you love doing these movies at this point where they come at you and they say, hey, we have a 5th one ready to go? And you're like, let's go, let's do it.
I mean, I work up to it, you know, and I've never played a part more than once before, so it is a little bit weird, especially because I think this was the part that's probably the least like me. So it was initially a stretch to see if I could do it, and now I've sort of become permanently associated with squeaky trousers.
Now, the first one you said, it wasn't just a stretch to see if you could do it, but it was almost like a dare to yourself. You really wanted to prove to yourself that you could do something like this, right?
Well, I mean, I think I always thought, you know, as an actor, you should do as many different type of things, and the more terrified it makes you, and the less like you it is, you know, the more you should give it a go, because that keeps you kind of muscular as an actor. And I was so amazed that I was offered it, and the folly of offering it to me, who had never made it through a PE class at all at school, was immense. So that was kind of a challenge, I guess.
Would you consider this the most terrified you had ever been of a role?
I mean, I think it's appropriate to be terrified every time, but that was probably at that time definitely the most terrified I'd been. Apart from once I did a movie in French, I was quite scared of that.
You did a movie in French?
Yeah.
Which movie was that?
I think 3 people saw it, but it was called Marie-Louise ou la Permission.
So going into number 5, when you have done this character so many times, do you go into the writer's room? Do you work with the writers to do new things that you want to bring to life with the character? Do you pitch ideas at all?
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the things that you know, I'm one of the original band members, I guess. So, you know, they tend to call on those of us who've been around since the first one to, you know, be part of coming up with a story, actually. So it's nice to be involved at a kind of a ground level.
What were some of the things that you sort of wanted to do this time around?
I mean, I thought it was really important. I think there were some questions that we'd left open in some of the other movies that I think are frustrating for fans to not even be addressed at all. And I thought it was really important to address the daughter and Scott Speedman's character and all of that. And I thought it was a really nice opportunity to have a slightly more vulnerable and more emotional side of Selene this time.
Is that when you make a movie like this? I mean, one of the things that I think is sort of not said enough about the Underworld movies is that they are one of the first sort of female lead heroes that we've seen in a blockbuster action sci-fi film. When you do that, obviously there is an initiative early on to not show her as vulnerable, to not show her as sort of like a full-fledged human being. As you progress forward, were you finding that you could do that more and more with the character as an actress?
Yeah, I mean, I think she was written, the first movie, she was written very stoic and very kind of composed. She was an extremely wounded, damaged person. But I guess with playing a part over several hundred years, you do get to kind of, a lot has happened to her. She's fallen in love.
Say the least.
She's cut the head off her surrogate father. She's, had a baby she didn't know she had. I hate when that happens. She's had a lot of things go on. So there's a lot more stuff to use, I guess.
Do you still go through like an intense training period for every film beforehand?
I mean, nothing's as intense as the first one. The first one, they'd say, okay, well, just, show me how you run around the car park, and then they'd all be crying.
If anybody ever said to me, show me how you run, I would walk away.
It's a horrible question,
Yeah,
isn't it?
Absolutely not. That's a private thing.
Exactly. So and I failed that miserably, and then I failed punching. I sort of failed everything, and everybody was upset and panicking and stuff. And so this time, I can run and punch. I mean, we know this already, so that's done. But then, because I'm quite good at guns and shooting, for some reason, just instant lucky stroke, and not a natural with necessarily other weapons. So they introduced quite a lot of other weapons in this one, just to keep me on my toes.
They had to add some training for you?
Yeah, I mean, I feel just instantly a complete dick holding a sword. Unfortunately, I don't know why. A sword in particular, an axe, just really inspires dread. So there's quite a lot of practicing with that.
Now, in this film, you have a female director, which is the first the series has seen, and is also not very common for big action movies. How did that come about?
I mean, I think it felt really. She felt, vagina aside, like the right person for the job, And
She's been working with Roland Emmerich for years as an assistant director and as I think a cinematographer or at least camera person, and then she directed she's directed multiple television shows.
Yeah, so she's, and she was a really big fan of the franchise. She was a fan of the character, and she had a lot. She was really, really keen to do it, and I think it did feel appropriate. As you say, we were quite early on in the female-led blockbuster thing. I mean, we had obviously Ripley and Linda Hamilton as our kind of two main icons when we started, but now it's become, I think, much more normal for there to be a female-led blockbuster movie, and it felt right to have a female director for that at this point.
Not normal enough. I would say there are still very, very few, and it seems even within the industry, a fear of even trying to do that. I think it's usually banked on like 2 or 3 stars at most.
I think the thing that's particular about ours as well, which is almost even more rare than a female lead, is that it's an original idea, and that really seems to have kind of died out. I don't think Underworld 1 would get made now. I think things have to be attached to a comic book or a trilogy of books or something, video game, and ours isn't. So I think that those two things, the vagina and the no source material. Proud of
Did
that.
you find that working with her was different than working with other male action directors, just in terms of how she framed you, how she spoke to you about the way that you were going to sort of do your action sequences? Did it feel like
she had absolutely no reaction if I'd drop something and bend over and get it in front of her. She was completely unmoved. That was a big difference.
It was like, get it.
Yeah, she just whatever. No, I don't think so. I think she was really collaborative. So we had a lot of meetings and talking and tweaking the script and all of that. And she was, I don't know if that's because she was a woman or if that's just because of her. That's the whole, I've never met her, obviously, as a man. But she was very into being collaborative. And she was also, there were some ideas she had that I didn't like. Like, for example, I think she wanted to completely change Selene's costume, and I didn't like it. And so she was okay with that. It was there was no battling. Do you know what I mean? We had a lot of kind of quite comfortable discussion about it.
So you love the sort of rubber, leather...
Well, I didn't love the other one, let's say that. I think this one definitely works. The other one felt a bit more like a wetsuit. Mm-hmm. No one suits a wetsuit except Keanu.
I have to say, last year at Sundance, I got the chance to see Love and Friendship, your Whit Stillman film. Thank you. One person who saw it. It's amazing. Everybody should see it. And I want to say I rewatched it recently, and not to sound like I'm kissing ass or anything here, but it's bullshit if you are not nominated for an award for this film, for an Academy Award, because your performance is unbelievable. Obviously, you have one of the great scripts of last year, sort of anchoring it a little bit, but your performance is pitch perfect every scene of the film.
That's so nice of you. Thank you. I loved doing that movie. I mean, I absolutely loved the script, and I've worked with Whit before, and I know that I love him, and it came out very much, and we were very happy with it. So
I have to ask, there's a particular tone that goes along with all Whit Stillman films.
Yeah.
And a lot of them seem completely derived from him.
Yeah.
Almost like his brain goes right to it. More so than any other filmmaker, you can kind of feel it and see it. When you're performing his words, those incredibly long monologues that you have, do you ever feel like you can just fall back on a Whit Stillman impression?
Oh God, no. I'd hate it so much. But he is, it's funny, he's not super, I mean, he's very talkative and incredibly erudite. And I found out so much more on the press tour and the interviews that we've done, because he's quite quiet on set, actually. I think because he's so often rewriting or suddenly coming out with a new scene, or, you know, he's not massively talkative on a set.
He's rewriting on when you guys were shooting and stuff?
Oh my God, it was the worst. You know, with those great long speeches, and we had only 26 days to shoot the whole movie anyway, so it was a bit daunting. And I kept saying to him, can you give me a final draft so at least I can kind of do my homework and turn up knowing all my lines and not keep him waiting? And he was quite evasive about that. And then I realized that, you know, you'd spend your 2-3 hours at night learning your massive long speeches for the next day, and then he'd come in the side of the makeup trailer and go, oh, I've just made a few changes. And you'd go, oh my God, what? And he'd gone, well, I've just moved the first paragraph to the fourth paragraph and then the sixth paragraph. And you think, oh my God, this is like you're trying to murder me. It was so alarming. He basically did do it every day. But yeah, a lot of the scenes with Tom Bennett he wrote on the spot. Because
the Tom Bennett scenes are
brilliant. That's pure wit. I mean,
he cast Tom Bennett and sort of noticed what he could do and started writing more for him?
Well, he cast Tom Bennett, and what Whit said was that there's no letters, it's an epistolary novel, so there's letters that my character has written that have her voice, Chloe's character. There aren't any letters written by Tom Bennett's character, so that was something that Whit had to come up with. And I think he felt that the scenes with him were, you know, they weren't that funny. But then we had this read-through, and Tom couldn't be there, so he was on an Apple Mac, Skyping in from somewhere else, I think in his pajamas, and managed to make just saying hello funny, which is not common. Like, there's only a few actors that are that inherently funny. And I think because of that, he got kind of rather inspired and started writing little extra bits for him. And also, it was, you know, kindly to give me a little break as well, so it all worked out for everybody.
You know, you were talking about how it's rare now to have something made that doesn't have sort of IP attached to it, right? And Underworld was sort of an anomaly in that regard, and it still kind of is. You know, I was looking back at your career, and there was this period of time just after Underworld where you were in like a series of wonderful independent films
that no one saw,
like Snow Angels and Nothing But the Truth. These are phenomenal films that were at this period of time where I think the industry was shifting in a kind of drastic way in terms of how things were marketed and seen. Did that sort of leave a bad taste in your mouth for a little while about doing films of that nature and of that budget? Because it would have, I could imagine it breaking anybody's heart. There's such incredible
I think
work
the one that broke my heart was Nothing But the Truth, which is a movie that I was incredibly proud of and really pleased with. And it's really not every time that, you know, you feel you've done good work and then actually your vision is lined up with the director's and it actually comes out well and everyone's really good in the movie and the movie really works. That doesn't happen every single time, and so it really did on that one. And, you know, I think one day was nominated for a Critics' Choice Award with it, and the next day we were told that the film company had gone bankrupt and the movie was never going to come out. And so that was really destabilizing and upsetting. And I think the other thing that kind of crept on slowly was, I love Underworld, and I love the fact that I'm, as you say, one of these handful of women who get to do this, which, you know, feels kind of important beyond an Underworld movie. What's weird is that I have kind of done usually 3 or 4 other small movies, at least in between each one, but Underworld sort of sticks out. And some of the other movies I think are really, really worth a look, but it's, you know, it's harder because you're not wearing the same kind of pants or something. I don't know what it is. You know.
Have you looked for other sort of action heroines to play besides Selene, or do you feel like you have Selene, you have that, and...
I mean, I did Total Recall, I did that other vampire movie.
Oh, Van Helsing,
That's
right?
Yes.
So
I've done it's okay. So I've done a few bits and pieces, but I'm relieved when I don't have to jump off a high building. I'll say that, I am.
How do you go about choosing your roles? Because as you kind of just said, you have a really diverse sort of slate of movies that you've been a part of since you started.
I think right at the very beginning, I went to Oxford and studied Russian and French, and I thought, God, everyone at drama school is learning some secret thing that I'm not going to be learning here, and so I'd better treat my career as much like as an apprenticeship as I possibly can, and do everything. Do a movie in French, do a play on stage, do, you know, an action movie, do whatever. So, and it sort of started out like that, and it's kind of kept going like that. So my resume does look fairly schizophrenic, but in a way I'm sort of happy with it. It's kind of what I wanted.
Were you, I mean, you do this movie Last Days of Disco, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the 90s, essentially, right? Was it early 2000s, end of the 90s?
I think it must have been, yeah.
98, 99, I think.
98-ish, yeah.
Something, 98.
No, I think it, I don't know, because I had my daughter in 99, and I certainly wasn't thinking about it during Last Days of Disco, so it must have been a year or so after that.
When you made that movie, it definitely picked up steam over the course of a few years. It developed a cult audience because of Wit and because of you and Chloe. I think when you went into Love and Friendship, were you aware that there was sort of like a maybe small or slightly big audience like who really wanted to see all three of you kind of come back together?
I mean, no, I didn't really think about that. I did think that people must be extremely interested to see what Wit was going to do next, you know, since he does tend to go subterranean and, I mean, probably working as a spy or some marine biologist or something. He's the most interesting person in the whole world. I mean, he's capable of anything. So, but I was definitely very interested to see what he would do next. And I feel like there was a lot of people waiting for that. But maybe the reunion, yeah, I don't know.
He said that he wrote that part for you. What, has anyone else ever said that to you?
Have they said it to me? I think so, a couple of times. But the weird thing about that was that he had the idea of me playing that part while we were doing Last Days of Disco, and then waited for me to age like a cheese to play someone whose daughter was 16 or 17 years old. So that is something that's never happened to me before. I don't think that many actors sit there going, "Oh, please age." You know, that seems unusual in this business. So,
like, I'm not going to just make this now and cast someone who's of this age. I'm going to wait for this actress I like to age about 10, 15 years. And
yeah, I mean, what a lovely thing. That's like one of the nicest things that's ever happened to me.
I can't imagine. That's unbelievable. I don't think anyone would hold a job for me for 15 years.
It's called the long game.
Yeah. And when it comes to Underworld and Selene, do you feel like you know, obviously when it comes to the first film, I can't imagine you had much sort of relationship with the character in terms of relating to her at all, but do you feel like you've grown into Selene at all and you have a certain amount of, you're protective of her and know of her and relate to her even more?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, I've always seen her as this incredibly tragic figure who just really didn't want to be a vampire, had no choice, would have really liked to have probably had a normal life, would still, you know, quite like a boyfriend and a nice relationship with her child, and just gets thwarted at every single turn. And
she's just sort of stuck in this cyclical sort of battle.
She's like the most unlucky person, yeah. She wants a nice boyfriend and a nice house. That's really what she wants.
And that's mostly why she's kind of angry most of the time.
Yeah, exactly.
She just wants an easy life.
But it always comes from either avenging someone that she loves or protecting someone she loves, or she's not just somebody who wakes up in the morning and is like, yeah, I feel like killing people today. There's always a cause.
How close do you get to doing the stunts?
How close?
Yeah.
Close. What do you mean? I mean, they like.
Well, some people like to say that they do their own stunts. I mean, but it's extremely difficult. Rarely, I mean, can you do all?
You can't do them
the
all.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't do them all just because I intend to see my daughter into her 30s, you know, and hopefully. But yeah, the thing about Underworld 1 was they wanted to do as much practically as they possibly could, number one, so as little CG as possible. That's why we have people walking around in werewolf suits, dehydrating by the second. And also, they wanted us to do as much as we feasibly could do and be insured. So
you're quite often fighting people in werewolf suits?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's the weirdest thing. And they're on these kind of funny stilt feet. And once the head goes up, I mean, it must be the most claustrophobic. I think I'd have a panic attack. They start sweating. There's nowhere for it to go. And then you see, you know, a team of people tear the head off a werewolf and throw in some Mountain Dew and tear it out. My daughter's been seeing this since she was about 4, so she thinks that's what people do at work.
It's just normal?
Yeah.
That's just what people do?
Yeah.
When other parents say my dad's at work, she imagines them fighting werewolf people?
Probably, yeah, probably.
I would imagine feeling so bad for them on set while you're beating on them and you know that they're claustrophobic and sweating the whole time.
Oh, anytime you're going, I've had enough, this is too long of a day, I'm fed up, I wish I could go home, just take a little look over at the guy in the werewolf suit and you can't say anything. He's definitely got it worse than you have.
What's the most difficult stunt or sort of difficult moment you've had in the series shooting?
Or ever, on all of the Underworlds?
In Underworld, yeah. On all of your movies.
My whole life, actually. Trying to think. I think the wire stuff is the most fun, but it's also slightly the scariest because it usually involves height or going upside down. I'm usually okay with height as long as I'm not upside down. But so if there's upside down involved,
You and most other people.
yeah. So the upside down stuff can get me a bit. But on the whole, I mean, we've had very similar stunt team from the very beginning. So they knew me when I couldn't run. So it's quite comforting.
So they can kind of call whether or not you're going to take part.
Well,
in
I
this
usually
element
walk in
of
and go,
this.
I certainly can possibly do that. And they go, no, you can. And they kind of ease me into it, and I end up doing it. But yeah.
That must be kind of one of the coolest aspects of doing movies like this, is that you do get to walk away and say, oh, I did this, and I did this, and I did this.
And you can't believe, I mean, especially if you're me, like I said, I really was not first to be picked for PE at all. So it is still quite funny. And also the other thing you realize is that it might look quite cool, when you see it in the movie, but generally you're kind of counting, sweating, and panicking, at the time. So it doesn't feel cool at all, and you're just so glad you haven't fucked it up. You know what I mean?
You're just hanging there for 2 days a lot of the time.
Yes, or the complicated fight sequences. You're just kind of waiting for when it's going to be you that blows it and punches someone in the face, which has happened. And then all together you kind of go, wow, that actually came out okay. Right.
A lot of times people say these movies are so important, and I think they're correct for sort of giving women confidence and showing young girls that they sort of can be the leads in a movie, or just sort of giving them confidence. But I'm wondering, as an actress, for you, doing all of these things that you never expected to do, learning all these sort of fight sequences, learning how to run, did you find that it built up your confidence as well as a person?
It really did, way outside of the Underworld movies, actually. And I think I had a very academic beginning to my life and career, and my instinct, if I'm working on a script, is to be doing it in a sort of academic-y, homeworky type way. And the area that I did need to be pushed in probably was physically, and that's what Underworld did, and all that training and having to become very good at something that isn't necessarily a talent for you and requires discipline and failing constantly, and all of that stuff. Actually very important, I think, as an actor, but also as a human being. It's a nice thing as an adult to get an opportunity to turn up sucking at something, and then, not even something you necessarily wanted to learn, but just have to.
Be forced to push yourself, too. There are people there who are there to push you.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a sort of a cycle of kind of despair and frustration, and then kind of exaltation when it works out. That's sort of way beyond an action movie. It's a really important thing, I think, just in life, to kind of really stick at something like that. So it has been good.
Absolutely. Let's get some questions from the audience. You.
Hi, Kate. Thanks for being here. Congrats on the film.
Hi, how are you?
You look amazing, by the way.
Oh, thank
Unreal.
you so much.
Are there any writers, directors, fellow actors that you really admire that you would like to work with that you haven't gotten a chance to yet?
God, yeah, most of them. I always find that such a weird question, because then you run into them somewhere and they look at you like you've stalked them or sent your knickers to them in an envelope. But what can I think? I just got lucky. I just worked with Jeff Bridges, who had actually been on my list of people that I wanted to just stand next to, even. And so I got really lucky with that. But, I feel stalkerish answering that question, but I'm so glad that you asked it.
Jeff Bridges is the coolest guy.
And the thing is, he actually is. Have you met him?
Yeah, and he's really cool, but there's also something behind his eyes.
No, he's
the coolest. You're you know something.
Yeah, no, he is. He's worth leaving little offerings outside his trailer, and he's amazing.
Not your knickers in an envelope, though.
Maybe, depends. I mean, who knows?
Next question.
Hey, Kate. So I remember the first Underworld came out before the Twilight movies, and
thank you for remembering that.
Yeah, and then the sort of the werewolf vampire story, the image changed a little bit, but the Underworld series has still endured. What do you think about the Twilight series, and do you think that what makes this series still popular?
I think the thing that's funny to remember is when they were starting out Underworld, the big innovative thing was, hey, imagine if they had vampires and werewolves in the same movie. And now it's in every movie and every TV show and everything. But we started it. We are the grandparents of that.
Underworld started a lot.
It did. Look at us kicking off the whole vampire werewolf thing. Twilight is a movie that I love dearly, particularly the character of Arrow, played by Michael Sheen, who's my daughter's dad.
Which, can I say, I normally don't mention or talk about anything in anybody's personal life when they come on stage, but you and your husband's Instagrams of your daughter, which I briefly looked at today doing research, are adorable. Like, and they are not. They don't seem to in any way come off like people showing off anything. It just looks like parents who have an unbelievable amount of like adoration and affection for their daughter.
Yeah, no, we like her. We got lucky. She turned up cool. I mean, it's actually nothing to do with us.
That's
she
what
was
it is. You
immediately
look like
cool.
you think she's cool.
Yeah, she is. She turned up like that. I wish I could take credit for it, and I can't actually at all. I haven't actually seen a Twilight movie all the way through, to be honest with you, because sometimes I have to give myself breathers from vampires and werewolves, or I become peculiar. Like I spend a lot of my life in that territory. I can't do it recreationally too much, or it's an obsession.
What do you mostly watch recreationally? What's your style?
I've gotten really obsessed with documentaries recently. I just watched that whole OJ one, Made in America, which blew my mind actually the other day. I didn't realize how long it was. It was 5 a.m, and I've been there.
I did the same thing. The whole thing in one afternoon.
Yeah, right.
Couldn't stop.
So that's sort of what I've been into lately. But,
Next
hi.
question.
We're going to take our last question from an online viewer.
Are
So
we?
Michael would like to know, what is the most challenging aspect about playing the same character over multiple movies?
What is the most challenging aspect? I don't really know what the most challenging aspect of it is.
Finding new ways to challenge yourself. I'm sorry, I'm
The
answering.
thing is, I feel like I'm really happy for you to answer on my behalf. I think the challenging part is really in the sort of genesis of finding a story that you think is worth telling, you know, over another 5th movie or so. But playing the same part is probably the outfit, to be honest. I'm never in a
After
massive
doing
rush to get back in.
5 Underworlds and a Van Helsing, do you see yourself sort of looking for more action genre?
I think you say
films
more
to be part
vampire.
of?
I mean, I would. It's like I said, it's still kind of extraordinary to me that I get thought of in that bracket. So I'd be just as terrified if it was something else. But it's not something that I'm not looking to be like I'm the action person. I seem to have accidentally fallen into it occasionally. But
Is there still a genre that scares you?
a genre that scares me.
Do you feel like you've sort of checked them all off at this point, or is there something that still scares you?
I mean, I think I've sort of dabbled a bit. I'd like to do more comedy, really. I think I really would like to do that, because that's what feels sort of instinctively like my thing. But I think carrying machine guns so much has maybe scared people off.
Maybe we can get you in a comedy where you're carrying a machine gun as well.
Right, that would work on all levels.
Kate, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Underworld Blood Wars comes out January, which day?
6th.
January 6th, which
Yeah.
is this week. This Friday.
This Friday.
Okay, thank
Get
you.
excited.
Underworld Blood Wars comes out this Friday. Kate, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much.